I really disliked Islam before I became Muslim. I didn't just dislike it, I hated it. With all of the media, I hated Islam. I was like, what do these people do with their women? Everywhere they go, there's like, fighting and war. What are these people? And, I used to see, women degraded. I was not impressed. And then when I went to college and university, I was like, at the end of the day, I shouldn't judge a people or a religion without reading. So alhamdulillah, I read a book that really inspired me at the time. And I couldn't put it down. I couldn't put it down at all. I was just, in fact, when I went home, I was trying to hide the cover of the book. I didn't want anyone to see what I was reading, especially not my mum. And it was a seerah, was it Martin Ling's seerah?
Martin Ling's seerah, yes. Martin Ling's,
yeah.
Great.
And so I was like, wow, whatever was being written in the seerah touched my heart to a point where I couldn't put the book down.
Yes, okay.
Thank you very much. I'm okay, actually. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then one night, I had a dream. And the dream was really quite unusual. I was in the water, trying to swim, and then all of a sudden there was a big wave that was coming, and I had to find refuge, and I went underneath the water. And it was all very real, like, you have those dreams that are very real, like you really feel like you're in that water and the fear. And then it was like it went to a next scene where there was this catastrophe, a disaster, like some kind of earthquake had happened. And everyone was crying, and I was just confused. And so I then, there were people there with, what's it called? Clipboards. And they looked very calm, and they were counting people. So when you're at some place and you're like, oh, they look like the stewards, they look like they know what they're doing. So I went to them in my dream, and everyone was in chaos but these guys. And I was like, excuse me. And they're like, what? And then they ignored me, and I said, excuse me. And they said, oh yes, what's the matter? I said, can you tell me which is the right one? And they ignored me again. I was like, excuse me, can you tell me which is the right one? And they were like, oh yeah, sorry. The one with the rhyming book. And then I woke up and I was like, the rhyming book? And I didn't know Quran rhymed.
Yeah.
So I went to my friend who was a Muslim and I said, does the Quran rhyme? And then she was like, in the thing, yes, it does. And then I was like, oh my gosh. It was just a very strange, I think I was already on the verge of like very much into it. But I had no knowledge of, I hadn't read Arabic, and I wasn't at that stage in any way, shape or form. I had no idea that the Quran rhymed. But it was very like, I asked a question and I was told the one with the rhyming book. So maybe they were angels, I don't know, or some kind of stewards of some kind. Allahu alim, I don't know. But it definitely was the last thing to say, this, don't fear. There's a lot of fear, obviously, with my family rejecting me. And some members of my family did reject me. I didn't speak to them for many, many years. And then, I got convertitis, and the rest is history.
I love that. That's a new one.
Thank you, Brother Nogel, for inviting me to your special circle. I have to say, Brother Nogel has been an inspiration to me, even though we've only met again after, let's say, I think nearly a decade.
Yes.
His commitment, his energy is, it's always been an inspiration. And I think at the end of the day, we have a similar spirit because we've always wanted change. And I think that's how we've ended up being in the same place at the same time, and you've encouraged me to continue in the things that I've done. And I found myself doing lots and lots of things since I've become a Muslim. So a little bit about me. I converted to Islam from a Hindu background. So I've been a Muslim, a convert for 20 years now. And in that time, I can say had such a long journey now. I think I've really discovered myself, let's say. So when you first convert to Islam, it's all very, new, exciting. And I say sometimes that I suffered from something called convertitis.
Oh, new one, is it?
Yeah, I just thought that was it kind of described my energy. I didn't quite know what to do, who to follow. It was quite confusing, I guess, at some points. But alhamdulillah, I found my way. I think when I first converted, I was a little bit too, let's say, I got involved with quite a radical group, let's say. But I decided to leave that after quite a few years, realizing that wasn't my journey. So what happens is we can't always know what is the best way forward. We don't always know what to do. I think what the attitude should be is that we ask Allah for our guidance. We ask Allah for to show us the right way. And we open doors and we go down them. And if they're not right, we can always come back out. And then we come back to center and have a good think about, which way we want to go next. So I've written a few little things that I've been involved with. I'm not trying to show off in any way, shape or form. It's just, these are the doors that were presented to me, and maybe inshallah later on we can talk about them. So some of just give you an idea of the activities that I was involved with. One was the Muslim-Jewish theatre production that was based in Kilburn. That's won many awards by the Prince Charles Foundation. One was the Three Faiths Forum, which was co-founded by the famous Zaki Badawi, who was here and had a big deal to play in this mosque as well. I was the ambassador for Women Without Borders, been an Islam Channel presenter, part of the United Nations on Women. I work for the Institute for Strategic Dialogue, Facebook, Google. Okay, now I'll stop. So yeah, basically what I'm trying to say is, if I didn't particularly go looking for all of these things. I find myself in these places and people coming to me because maybe I was, like with Brother Nogel, wanting to make change. And I feel like, people like to meet people who want to make that change. And lastly, I was working with the, can't forget to mention the Bereaved Families Forum, who came and did a big thing in this masjid maybe 7 or 8 years ago, where the local synagogue came into this masjid, and congregants from this masjid sat together with Jewish friends, and we spoke about Israel-Palestine. It was a little bit dodgy at first. We were wondering if there's any fights going to break out, but with a little bit of hummus and food at the end, and obviously
Jewish food.
Yeah, kosher food. The presenters were from Palestine and Israel, who had lost their family, from both sides, and said, I've lost my child, you've lost your child. Do we keep fighting? How do we carry on? So, alhamdulillah, they came and spoke in this mosque, and it went down very well. So now I find myself, after leaving a certain extreme group, to then working with a variety of places around the world, I find myself back home, like literally at home in Barnet, and I work in Barnet Council, but via the Home Office. And it seemed like Allah made a job just for me, because a lot of my work is about bringing people from different faiths and backgrounds together, trying to really build community cohesion. And I really feel that this is part of my deen. I really feel like it's part of worship. Like the Prophet ﷺ was very much about diplomacy. He was very much about bringing people together, fostering good relations, and to treat other human beings with respect and tolerance. So this is, when I go out and do my job, we had recently again did an iftar. It seems like it seems like a trend now, like my forte, to bring Jewish and Muslim people into the mosque. But it works. It can't just happen once or twice. It has to keep going. And I feel like if we don't, it's like a garden. If we don't water it and look after it and tend to it, then it starts to rot away and become dry, and no activities go in there. So I feel, continuous relationships and good relations, fostering this has to be basically continuous. So alhamdulillah, that's some of the things that I've been up to in Barnet. And what the point, it's been eye-opening being in this situation as well, because I've come as somebody quite new. It's a very new post. Not everyone in the council understands what I do even. They're just, okay. But I understand it as a way to challenge hatred that's going on within the various communities, whether that's Jewish extremism, Islamist extremism, Hindu extremism. These are not part of a society that we should live in, and we should always challenge them. So it's been a good way to foster that relationship in my post that I'm in now. And it's come to my attention that even though we think the council and Barnet, etc., should know what they're doing, I'm going to give you a big, they do know what they're doing, and I'm not going to say anything else apart from that, but I'm just saying that they need to learn more. And the fact is they want to learn more, and that's why I'm, at council. And they view various Muslim communities as hard to reach. And I know that's not true. I know that Muslim communities, regardless of what denomination, want to be involved with politics and government and ruling and the community. So one thing that I've started, hopefully, inshallah, is to have a union and a network of Muslim groups, Shia, Sunni, Ismaili, coming together. Because at the end of the day, they all go to various interfaith groups, but they don't work together. And we face a lot of issues today with Islamophobia and various issues that we all know about, but we should discuss in a safe space. So these are the types of things that I've been trying to get up to within the council itself. And what I found is if you don't ask, you don't get. You have to just pick up the courage and and see what someone says. And to be honest, I thought that the Shia and the Sunni centres wouldn't come together. But I was really surprised. They're like, yes, let's do this. Let's get together, let's talk. And my idea is that can be like an example, a beacon of success, inshallah, that can, other counties and boroughs can also, do the same thing, inshallah. So let's see how that goes. You have to wish me luck with that one. I think it's really important as well that I've learned, and something that I want to share with my experiences working with all these organisations is to really make ourselves visible, make ourselves known as a community that is, not hard to reach, which is what people think, very easy to reach. We are the easy to reach community. If you want something, we're there. If you want to, help your local community, because sometimes you can't solve the problems of the world. Well, we can't solve the problems of the world, but we can solve some of the things that are within our own community, within our own vicinity, whether it's our neighbours or our local, community group. Maybe we can do something there. And we can start small, because that's what Allah will look at, what efforts we made, what we did, how we tried our best. So this is the type of work that I'm getting on with at the moment. And there are people who are doing my work around the whole country, in fact. So if you all want to become involved, come to me at the end and I can point you in the direction of someone doing my job within your area. There's probably likely somebody who's doing that work. And at the end of the day, I only have a certain limited time. There's no guarantee that the government will fund this post forever. So it's my little time to try and make a change, try and make a difference. No matter how big or small, we should always never underestimate a small act. That's what I'm trying to say, I think. I recently went on holiday to the Alhambra. I've always wanted to go, and I just found it absolutely fascinating. And it just brought back lots of things like, wow, this is massively part of our history, with Cordoba being one of the central areas of, education and philosophy. And it brought tears to my eyes because I felt, where's that all gone? Yeah. It feels so like, there were people from different backgrounds in Muslim communities going to visit. And it just felt very sad to go to a place where, you know, this note is just become a relic and it's not really understood. So I think at the end of the day, what happened back then can happen again if we pull together, if we come together, if we, you know, come out of our comfort zone a little bit and make those efforts with the rest of the community. And as I said, it's not always easy to do that, but people like myself are working within your areas to try and broker better relationships. And once those bridges are built and the relationships are fostered, they last for a long time. So alhamdulillah, I feel very, very blessed. I was guided to Deen, guided to Islam. You know, I have still very, very close links with my family. Even though they're Hindu, they're very respectful of my conversion to Islam. It was very tough at first. I'm not going to say that it wasn't easy. But when they, you know, when they've seen that actually at the end of the day, I'm not doing anything wrong, and they see, you know, the positive things that I'm trying to do, alhamdulillah, everything has worked out. So have I got much more time? Am I just going on? Yeah. So at the end of the day, if you try to say like if you've got an idea and you see a problem, try to identify that and try to think, what can I do? How can I change it? And even though you might feel, well, I can't do very much, it's just little old me, I can, you know, there's no one going to listen to me, you'll be really surprised at how far you can get by just being little old you. So this is the other thing that I think there's a hadith, if you see something wrong, you change it with your, you've got to remind me now, because hand, and if you can't change it, you change it with your tongue. Otherwise you hate it in your heart. Yeah, I always get that mixed up. So this is something, you know, you don't have to be a huge Islamic scholar to know lots of things. You can know very, very basic things about Deen, about the Prophet's life, about these, like the story Dr. Said said earlier on, and you can just implement that in your life. Because at one point I used to think that I had to be a scholar and I couldn't know anything, and I just listened to people who I felt were more knowledgeable than me. But when I looked closer at them, their actions and their ways didn't quite match with what I felt Islam was. So I was like, look, I'm never going to be a scholar. Alhamdulillah, I try to listen to various talks, I try to read my Quran, but Allah's put, everyone has a gift, everyone has a special ability, and I think the best thing is to, that is what the gift of Allah is to each person. Whether, you know, not everyone can become a doctor, even though all Asians want their families to become doctors, but the fact is not everyone has that capability. And those that do, alhamdulillah, they do good things. But, you know, whether it's like my son, for example, he is obsessed with working with his hands. It's a gift from Allah that he can do that. He can, you know, he builds things, and his hands are really like solid as well. So he was born to do a specific, whether it's engineering or I don't know, you know, or a carpenter or whatever he wants to do. I've tried to nurture my children to say, do what you feel is natural for you to do, what you're going to excel in, and what you're going to love. So I love what I'm doing. I love trying to make that change, coming to circles like this, explaining my work, and if somebody, you know, is inspired by one thing, like I was inspired by Brother Nagel going every Saturday, still amazing that you do this, to make that change and to make that difference. Keep going. Don't feel despair. I think that's another lesson in Islam, is don't feel despair. It's, I've been taught so much that no matter what happens, when you've got a good niyyah, you've got a good intention, Allah always blesses that. And everything that I've done, which I've done with that intention, trying to bring people together, trying to bring peace, try to, you know, foster good, peaceful relations, it's always been very, very positive. And deep down, I feel that's a blessing from Allah. That's like a green light from Allah to say, keep on going. Don't feel despair. So I think that's kind of mainly my point. So yeah, just mainly what I have to say. I think my experiences. There's one other point. I mean, there is something that I'm not a new Muslim anymore. I'm an old Muslim, but I never came with baggage. You know, I came quite fresh to the deen, and I saw things that were very cultural. And I think we shouldn't feel, frightened to address the cultural things that are happening within our communities. I know we don't want to talk about them very openly because there's already a lot of focus and, we're looked under a magnifying glass. So when we do say something, we don't want it to become negative. But I feel we do have a duty, whether it's, abuse against women, various other cultural practices, honor killing. Within our own communities, we have to address that.
That's right.
In the best way possible. I think we just need to be honest that this is happening. It's not good for our deen. It's not a very good impression of Islam. So even from that as a duty, we have to address this issue. So I feel this is something within my work I've been allowed to talk about, but I understand the sensitivities and I don't want to make the situations worse. So it'd be good to get workshops of more Muslim women and men. The other thing I want to do is get men and women involved, because this is just a human issue, a moral issue that we need to address within our communities. And that will speak volumes, because it's in this day and age we have to prove ourselves a lot. But it could work out good if we have been given so much focus and we're under such a big magnifying glass. Let's show them something positive. Let's do that. And I think as a community we're really going in the right direction, and there are people who are working hard. So that's basically one of the last points that I want to say.